talking pro days here at SeniorBowl.com. Of course, the final phase of the pre-draft process after the Reese's Senior Bowl and the NFL Combine. You've, Phil Savage, been to Tuscaloosa already. You're going to hit a couple other spots, including Florida State and LSU, where you'll see Zach Mettenberger potentially throw. Tell me, as an NFL scout, I know a lot of people focus on the numbers, but what do you get out of these, maybe that people wouldn't really see?
Well, Rob, first of all, you mentioned I've been to Alabama, going to Florida State and LSU. So that's 3 pro days over a 3 or 4 week period. The NFL personnel people are out there every single day trying to grab those last tidbits of information. But there's a lot of things that go on outside of the posted 40-yard dash time or the posted vertical jump. And we were going to talk about that a little bit today. And first of all, every player that's going into the draft has what I call an inventory sheet. And the scout's job is to go and fill in every blank, whether it's a vertical jump, whether it's going back and talking to one more coach or one more source at the school, whether it's going back and getting one more bit of character information on a player, particularly on these juniors that have come out into the draft. So, that's something that takes place on the ground at the school. A couple of other things that happen. All the attention goes to the first rounders and second rounders and the guys that are, quote, draftable. But this is an opportunity also for the scouts to meet up with the players that are flying beneath the radar, guys that did not go to the combine, players that are likely not to be drafted. They go and recruit them and say, hey, I'm with such and such team. We're going to have a hole at this position. We're seriously interested in you. But if we don't draft you, we would definitely want to sign you after the draft. And you begin to build those relationships, putting a face with a name for these players to identify with a certain club in terms of their future. And then the last thing, and this is something that won't be talked about until after this draft, is that at many schools, they have what they call the Rising Senior Pro Day. And so for the example, at Alabama last week, they ran their Rising Seniors. So you get a chance to get their official height and weight and official 40-yard dash time, and that begins the process for next year, the 2015 draft.
Well, let me ask you about the quarterbacks real quick, because I'm really interested in this. I mean, you have A.J. McCarron working out at Alabama, who already threw at the Combine, and you have miles of tape to watch on this guy. What is a scout really getting out of watching him throw against air, basically, to one receiver who's not covered with no defense?
I think the biggest thing, Rob, is that you get a chance to see the ball come off their hands live and in person, and you have a vision of that. Of course, all these pro days are taped, and you can make that comparison, particularly the clubs that are traveling from school to look at the individual throwers. You get a chance to really make those comparisons in terms of how that ball is coming off their hand. Is it coming off with explosiveness? Is there a loop on it? Does it have a nice spin, nice spiral rotation? Is it a slow rotating pass? Is there a wobble to it? What have you? I think in a lot of respects, though, the pro day workout for the quarterback is probably the one that you get the least out of, because they're the most orchestrated many times. But like with defensive backs, many schools don't have their corners play in a back pedal. They play in what they call a side shuffle. So that's a situation where these defensive back coaches from the NFL can actually force these defensive backs into doing some things that they haven't seen on the tape. So there definitely is some value in the position drills. And then, of course, oftentimes the players have not completed every single testing drill in terms of some of the times and jumps. So again, trying to fill in that final piece of information from a scouting standpoint.
And we're going to focus on the quarterbacks in our next segment. You want to tell the folks kind of what we're planning on doing, because we have all these pro days coming up. We're going to see Mettenberger, who's coming off ACL injury. So obviously I can see why there'd be some value in seeing him throw and move around. But talk a little about how we're going to break this down in the coming weeks here with the quarterbacks.
Well, the quarterback pro day train has begun. Of course, Jimmy Garoppolo worked out March the 4th at Northwestern. A.J. McCarron worked out March the 12th at Alabama. But you've got Teddy Bridgewater, Blake Bortles, Johnny Manziel, Zach Mettenberger, Aaron Murray, all on the horizon over the next few weeks. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go into the film room and talk about the strengths and weaknesses, the positives and the negatives of each of these players, and explain why it seems that evaluators are really all over the map and there's not a real consensus on any of these 7 or 8 top quarterbacks.
Sounds good. We'll be in the film room in the coming weeks here at SeniorBowl.com.